Hello, my name is Mahima Shetty. I am an assistant professor in the Department of Clinical Psychology, Yenepoya School of Allied Health Sciences. So today I'll be talking about the topic of neuroplasticity. So when we talk about neuroplasticity, first we are going to describe the structure of how a neuron is. So according to how a neuron is, you will have a nucleus, a cell body, a cell membrane, axon, myelin sheath, and synaptic end bulbs. These are the main important parts that you need to know before we go further with neuroplasticity. So neuroplasticity is basically refers to your brain's ability to absorb information or even evolve or even challenge your brain to function in different skills and accommodate new skills or accommodate new knowledge. That is what neuroplasticity means. So first we are going to talk about the key concepts of neuroplasticity. So first in that is developmental plasticity. Now developmental plasticity is basically where when kids as they grow, as we grow in general, brain is developing as the kids grow by, okay, and usually what happens is during this phase our neurons that are present in the brain are also developing. So when that's why we say it's very easy for kids to learn new things, new concepts. It's very easy because of the developmental plasticity, in the sense how easy the brain is ready to accustom to new things and challenged by new things. That is what developmental plasticity means. Now in that we talk about is neurogenesis and the control of neuronal number. So basically neurons grow and there are the death of neurons too. So there's increase in number and decrease in number. So in that first thing is you talk about, there are many things that come in picture when it comes to microcephaly. Hydrocephaly is basically where one of the example is microcephaly, where usually the brain, whenever the brain is developed, is not developed as such, and because of that the number of neurons also which are present is less. So because of that kids suffer a lot of things, like when it comes to your skills, your speech, your developmental issues. So that starts creeping in. So when there's less of neurons present, then we talk about neuronal migration. So basically whenever the there's this particular zone in the brain called periventricular proliferative zone. Basically proliferation is basically what is increase or development of new neurons. So when such things happen, it usually is the new ones, which are the earlier ones are built, they go to the back of the cortical zone, and they travel to the back of the cortical zone, and as you go further, as the later part of the neurons which are developed, they go to the higher end, that means in the top of the cortical zone. And there's this another term called Reeler mouse. So Reeler mouse is basically what it is. It's the vice versa of it. So the new neurons that are present, that are generated there, it goes to the top of the cortical zone, and the ones which are basically developed later are gone to the bottom of the cortical zone. It's not supposed to be that way. That's not how it's migrated or traveled at all. But when such things happen, there are chances that there is some kind of issues when it comes to development of the brain. Then we talk about neuronal differentiation. Now, neuronal differentiation is basically talk about is phenotype, like how genetically, how each and every person is different when it comes to how the person is being tall or short. All these things, these are phenotypes. So neurons also, there are types, like there are some neurons which have short axon or long axon for that matter, short dendrites. So even those kind of differentiation will affect the development of a neuron or the signals passing through the neurons. Now formations of connections. So basically see, neurons job is to send signals to the brain cells or to the body. So if we want to move our hand, of course it starts sending signals through the brain, and that's how it goes. So now each neuron is connected to another neuron here. So connection in the sense, the last part of the neuron, which is a synaptic end, is connected to the first top part, which is the dendrites of the neuron, and that's how the signals are passed. So the same way, there is now this particular formation of connections which is characterized by progressive and regressive events. So now when we talk about progressive events, is basically how a neuron is built or is grown. Just like a tree, how the tree is expanded, the same way neurons are also expanded. And regressive events is basically trimming. So the neurons are smart enough to understand where they should be trimming of the neurons and where they should be, like if they want to send faster signals, they might start trimming themselves. And this is, they might cut themselves off. Okay, so that is what regressive events means. Now, plasticity of cortical connections. So here basically what happens is when there is issues in the cortical zone, like how we talk about that preventricular proliferation zone, when there is issues when it comes to connection of the neurons, there is a chance that people might go through syndromes like schizophrenia. This is one of the syndrome that we're talking about, because there's failed stabilization of connections when there's a development of the neurons. So that is called plasticity of cortical connections. How plastic, or how accustomed it is, like how can it actually start modulated by different conditions, and all those things comes under plasticity of cortical connections. Then we talk about language learning. Now, you must have heard this quite a lot of times, that kids learn many languages, or they are prone to learn new languages in a go rather than when adults learn it. So there's a reason why, because neurons are still developing. They are, as we said before also, they are accustomed to so many different variations or skills, and they can be easily flexible in that way. So the same way here also, how they learn their language, how they learn through social interaction, different kinds of language, different kinds of phonetics, and all those things will come under language learning, that they can learn it very easily. Then we talk about myelin plasticity. So as I've shown you the diagram before also about the axon. So as a neuron, the stem of the neuron is called the axon. And each axon, every axon has a sheath called myelin sheath. And each sheath has a differentiation. So it's not a continuous sheath that it has. It is obstructed by just the axon itself. So what usually happens is the myelin sheath's job is to send the signals as fast as possible. So if there's more of myelin sheath, it might be easier for the the signals also to pass as soon as possible. Then we talk about adult plasticity. Now, what do you mean by adult plasticity? So as we said, when you're young, your plasticity or flexible, your brain can be as flexible as possible. But as you grow older, the flexibility might diminish. In the sense, neurons also start degenerating as we grow older. So that is what adult plasticity means. It's not like the brain does not have the capacity to learn new things or assess new skills, but it just does not have the capacity to do it as faster as it could when we used to be younger. Because as neurons degenerate, even our body or even our brain, for their memory and everything, that's why people start getting Alzheimer's or people start getting dementia as fast as possible. So that's what adult plasticity means. Then we talk about adaptive versus maladaptive plasticity. Now, basically, how a neuroplasticity may be favoring adaptation of the animal environment, and how all these. Now, for example, I can tell you is a pathological case called autism. So basically what happens is the person doesn't know how to speak, or it can differ. Autism also, it might differ from person to person, the symptoms, but adaptive is basically how can a person, the neurons which are present also are very adaptive or very flexible to new things and everything. But during that age, that should be very normal to happen, but it doesn't. So that comes under maladaptive plasticity, that the plasticity does not occur, or the flexibility in neurons does not occur. So sometimes developmental cases like autism might occur in them. Now we talk about types of neuroplasticity. The first type that we talk about is structural plasticity. So now structural plasticity is basically where neurons understand where more information is needed in your brain. There are two hemispheres in your brain. There are many places that it's for one place is for vocal language, one place is for memory, one place is for thought, one place is for vision, one place is for hearing, and so on. So where exactly it's necessary, the efficiency is necessary, So there they'll send a lot of signals, or a lot of neurons are present in that particular place. So according to that, according to the structure of a person and how the person functions, according to that, the neurons also process or they create a pathway where it's necessary. The experiences, new experiences that you need to learn, it will go to that particular pathway and start functioning as much as possible. That is what structural plasticity means. Then we talk about functional plasticity. Now, functional plasticity is basically, it is usually arised from trauma or damage to the brain. So there's this part of the brain where it's damaged. So because of that, the neurons also are diminished and there's loss of functions. So that comes under functional plasticity. Now, structural plasticity is basically where there is a lot of function that is happening. It goes there and makes a pathway. Structural plasticity. And functional plasticity comes in the area where there is a lot of damage that has happened to the brain. So that comes under this. So one thing that we talk about here is homologous area of adaptation. So basically it's a process that takes place when like an area of the brain is harmed and other unharmed regions take over that area of the brain and starts operating the damaged portion. So it acts as like a savior basically. So the neurons try to help the other part of the brain to actually start functioning. If not in full-fledged, but at least to some extent starts helping them. So that's what it tries to do. Then comes cross-modal reassignment. Now, cross-modal reassignment is basically used in sensory information like hearing, like sight, basically all your senses. So whenever other region like of the brain is in charge, like if sight is in charge, it starts compensating the hearing part too. So now, for example, you are watching a movie, for example, which has no subtitles or anything as such. And usually if all of that is the side which is already in charge, like you're watching something. So your senses is basically, the vision senses is basically active, not your hearing senses. But if someone actually speaks or talks about you, you tend to immediately turn to that person. So basically what happens here is the other power senses of the brain where the neurons are not actually functioning, it tries to compensate immediately. So that is what cross-modal reassignment means. Then we talk about map expansion. Now that occurs when the brain as of the particular portion is getting used more than other areas and starts expanding. Now, for example, if a person who is a musician, who is constantly practicing and utilizing the parts of the body, for example, your hands or your ears or your voice or whatever it is, so it gets enhanced. Those parts, because they know that part is all the more skilled and they need a lot of practice. So you understand, as neurons, you start developing more and more pathways there. So that is what map expansion means. Then we talk about compensatory masquerade. This all comes under functional neuroplasticity. So now compensatory masquerading is basically when your brain utilizes different method to conduct an action or to recall a new way. So basically what happens is when you forget something, but you have been doing that before, but still you want to learn something new, your brain tries to help you to access or help you in being flexible to understand or to accommodate that kind of skill. For example, you have never learned any new language before and you want to start learning a new language. It's not easy, but your brain tries to, or your neurons tries to assess or even understand this new thing that is happening. So that's what compensatory masquerade tries to do here. So in conclusion, basically neuroplasticity, what you will understand is how much is your brain or is your neurons actually ready to accommodate new information or ready to be flexible as much as possible to learn new things or to understand new concepts for that matter, and how much is it ready to, whenever a part of your brain is actually weakened, how the other part of the brain is going to be heightened and they are going to be sending signals to the lost part of your brain, and how it will try to help the other parts of the brain to function. So that is what neuroplasticity means. Thank you.